I mean, personally, I don't know about you, but the whole idea of marriage, I think there's less and less people buy into it now. This kind of it. Um, I don't think I ever would want to get married.
Really?
Personally, yeah.
I want to get married just because I don't know. I think it feels necessary to me to kind of commit that much to someone. Otherwise,
Thing is, so it used to mean something, right? Or at least it used to mean a lot more. So, in the past, if you got married and then you divorced, it was like there was a massive stigma involved there. So it meant that you would be kind of shunned almost from your community. It was very much once you get married, that's it. You know, divorces hardly ever happened. Whereas now it's pretty massive the amount of divorces that happen. I think isn't it like 50% or something? I'll check that while I'm talking. But
yeah,
especially this is something interesting actually that casts a bit of shadow on the whole idea of women taking over the workplace and men being the stay-at-home fathers, and that kind of idyllic situation, which actually a lot of men would not be against. But the interesting thing that happens is that 75% of the time, the woman goes away, earns lots of money, and then divorces the guy, and then goes and marries someone with more money, and so with more status, and so.
Wait, that happens a lot. Did you
75% of the time, yeah, that women become the main earner in a family. Yeah.
But I think that would be a rare instance in itself, really, for the father to stay at home. I think that's a very rare case.
It means that it's not like a rational choice to then want to do that in the future as a man. I personally.
No, I wouldn't. I would never want to be a stay-at-home dad.
I mean, it sounds like a sweet deal on its own. You get to.
I don't know. I just don't think it's like a manly thing to do.
I mean, if you liked Frozen, it's fine. Put that on. And, no, I'm gonna try and find the stats for that.
But like, it's coming back to like these gender roles we have in society, and they're there for like a reason. No one sat down. Like I always bring it back to this. Like no one sat down and decided this themselves. I think people look at society and think it's a group of people at the top, choosing what happens, but it's not. It's come from years and years and years of human experience, and that's the reason they're there. And all right, it's fine to challenge them sometimes, because obviously we get things wrong, but sometimes it becomes kind of problematic, and I don't know. I feel like being a white man myself.
I thought you were going to say being a wife.
No.
Sorry, carry on. I won't interrupt again.
But being a white man, I feel like you're viewed as like, oh, you're so privileged. But at the end of the day, I'm not that privileged, because I'm not from a rich family or anything. I've kind of worked my way through life. I've pretty much had a job since I was 16.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, it's hard for people to take you seriously now. Like people like oh you're white and you can't have an opinion because your life's so easy, but it's not.
Yeah, well, it's like racism starting up all over again, really, isn't it? So there's like the end of segregation happening, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, now we're gonna discriminate against you because of your skin color, which is what we were trying to stop in the first place.
Yeah.
But there are actually many ways in which men are what's the word? Discriminated against in society, and there's this idea that it's only women and only black people and only LGBT people. We're not going to start that whole conversation again, but there's this idea that only certain groups of people can be discriminated against, and it's a bit silly. So
well, I know it happens. It probably does happen on a bigger scale to minority groups, and I'm not gonna say it doesn't, but I think some people have to learn that everyone experiences discrimination. Everyone experiences.
Yeah. Well, it's the difference between like systemic discrimination, which is actually doesn't happen as much to minority groups anymore, at least, than it did before. I mean, it certainly does, but there's I've got a massive list here of ways in which men are discriminated against, and like systemically, right, by just the way the system's set up.
Yeah.
But it's not even because of the way the system's set up. It's the system set up because of the differences between men and women, and because of like it's derived from that. It's not the cause of the problems.
No, and I think people look at things like the pay gap and the number of black people winning Oscars, or the number of women in high Fortune 500 companies, and they blame it all on discrimination, when there's a lot of factors that aren't discrimination that go that contribute towards that, and people start then looking for discrimination where there isn't any discrimination.
So like with the example of the gender pay gap, it's not false that the statistics themselves aren't false.
No.
Right.
No.
So it's true that if you take all wages, you divide them by the amount of people that are in that wage group, you get an average of like how much average wage a man gets and how much average wage a woman gets. Yeah, that statistic is there, but the conclusion then isn't, oh, women need to get a pay rise. That's not. No. Because that actually doesn't fix the problem. They're taking, like, it's an average, right? It's not. So a man and woman doing the same job, unless the man's doing it better and is working more hours, they're going to get paid the same. So it's, I mean, a lot of it's to do with so the IQ and the way that it's distributed along the. I mean, first of all, there's a bell curve which makes it so that there are more really low IQ men and more really high IQ men. So it's really rare for a woman to be really high IQ, and it's really rare for women to be really low IQ. So it's more
in the middle.
Yeah, it's more focused in the middle.
Yeah.
And so that coupled with the fact that men are just physically stronger, means that there's a much wider variety of jobs available to men that don't get in the way of other men's jobs, if you know what I mean. So there's a shorter window of jobs that are then suited to a woman, right? So that doesn't mean that there's any reason why a woman shouldn't aim for the job that she wants. It just means that there are reasons why that hasn't been the case.
There's a reason why men thrive in these sorts of jobs and women kind of don't. And I'm all for a woman trying to get into these industries. Like, no one's stopping them from doing it. It's just, I think a lot of women find that they probably don't want to do it, because I know apparently in Sweden, where this has been pushed massively for women to go into other industries such as engineering things, but still the gap, I think apparently I think the gap's got like even bigger with women going into cares kind of jobs, with the men going into the sciences and the engineering field. So even in these progressive countries such as Sweden, or I think it's Scandinavia as a whole, women still turn to the jobs that women turn to, and men still go to the jobs that men go to.
Well, yeah, just so before they started to try and become as egalitarian as possible by kind of reducing just all the differences in the system, the hypothesis was, so then there'll be less differences between the amount of money that they make and the amount of job choices, and that was the idea. But it's actually widened the gap between what jobs they go into and all that, and a lot of it's just to do with personal choice. So it all comes back to what the individual wants to do. Yeah.
So, and that's what we kind of got to bring it back to, is individualism, and not grouping people on what identity group they are part of. Yeah. Because you should take humans on a human level instead of judging them on what they are, and associating them with like a part of a group instead of them as a person. That's all I do in my life, is when I meet someone, I just judge them on how I see them, like not on how I try my best to, when you know when like someone tells you, "Oh, I hate this guy, I hate this guy,"
Yeah.
and then they talk shit about them, and then
Yeah.
you've never met them, but then you meet them. I always try and forget what someone else has told me, and I try and make my own mind on someone.
Well, usually when that happens, it's because there's something in that person that your friend is reminded of in themselves. So like that, most people actually, even if they're not very likable, unless they remind you of something in yourself, you're not going to hate them. Like if you hate someone enough to go and tell all your friends about them and start complaining about it, it's likely that it struck a chord like in you more than them just being like a dick.
I guess that depends on why you hate someone, like whether it's their character or they've done something. Because sometimes when
if they've done something, but you know when you just, I think everyone's probably had this, where you meet someone and you just
don't like them straight.
even after a minute or so, you just
first impressions.